This is video number 6 for the Run Towards That Which Scares You video series. And in the last video, I talked about kind of a mystical experience with a bird called the longtail, the Bermuda longtail. And if you saw the video, you know what I'm talking about. This video, I'm going to go in the same direction, talking about those mystical experiences that we all face and that we've experienced sometimes. And if you're not into the woo-woo, I get that, but I think all of you probably have faced something like that in the past. So in this video, I'm going to talk about a time when I was in Bermuda, sort of stuck there in limbo, or at least that's the way I saw it at the time, and I was approached by somebody, a human being, who told me something that kind of sent a chill down my spine. And while I was feeling frustrated and not knowing exactly where I was going to go next or what I was going to do, and you got to understand that that time of the year, this was late fall, late November, actually beginning of November when I first got there. I got there on November the 5th, worked on my boat for about a week, like I talked about in the last video, and then plopped it in the water when I was ready to go. But that time of the year, you have to understand that weather in the Atlantic Ocean is very unpredictable. Every 2, 3, 4 days, maybe once a week, a weather front will come off of the coast of the United States into the Atlantic and then blow up into potentially a very strong low pressure system. They call them nor'easters back east. But really what they are very intense wintertime hurricanes, the way they spin. And I just did that backwards. They actually spin counterclockwise. I'm sorry about that. While I was alone in Bermuda, sitting on my boat, wondering where I was going to go, because that time of the year, the Bermudians will tell you, and sailors will tell you, everybody will tell you, and I knew it, that time of the year, the best direction to sail is due south, right towards the Virgin Islands or somewhere in the Caribbean. You don't want to go west because you might run into those fronts that I was talking about before. But ultimately, that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to end back up in Wilmington, North Carolina. So I was going through my head, okay, well, I could go down to the Virgin Islands, which could be cool, spend a couple of weeks island hopping until I get back to the eastern part of the United States, southern Florida, and then come up the coast, either offshore, or if the weather was bad, I could take the intercoastal waterway and eventually end up back in Wilmington. Could have taken months, and I was willing to do it if that's what it took. I'd had the boat in the water maybe a week, and this is about the second week in November, and I'm feeling a little frustrated because Thanksgiving that year, which was 2011, my daughter and her husband invited me to come up and have Thanksgiving with them in Washington, D.C. And I was planning on doing it because in my head, I was thinking, you know, 6-day sail, 7-day sail, a couple of weeks, I might be able to make it. Even if I got on an 8-day sail down to the Virgin Islands, I could leave my boat there, jump on a plane, and fly to Washington, D.C. and have a Thanksgiving dinner with my daughter. So again, I'm sitting in the boat for about a week and kind of feeling frustrated, not knowing what to do. And where I was, if you've ever been to Bermuda, the Royal Naval Dockyard area of Bermuda is at the southern end of the island where all the cruise ships come in, and that's where I'd left my boat to be repaired. And so I'm sitting there tied up against this concrete block wall. It's low tide, so the top of the wall, which is the walkway and the park that's there, is about 10 feet above my head. So I'm sitting there, and I think if I remember correctly, I was drinking a glass of wine, just kind of wondering what to do, and all of a sudden I look up and there's this older man, and I refer to them as ancient Bermudians because that's, I don't know, that's just kind of the feeling I get from certain people that I would run into there. And this guy was probably, I don't know, he looked to me like he was 90 years old. But he just had this way, this peaceful way about him that seemed a little different to me. And he was standing there looking down at me with a smile on his face. And so I look up at him and I was like, hey, how you doing? And he told me he was doing fine, and There was kind of a pause, similar to that cabbie that I told you about in the last video. Different guy though. So he's looking at me and he says, "You sail in here?" I said, "Well, yeah, you know." I told him the story that I'd told you guys, you know, about sailing over, leaving the boat there, and feeling kind of frustrated because I'm ready to go, you know, I want to go and hit the sea again. And he just kind of had a smile on his face, and he said, "You know, this time of year, the only real direction that you should go is south, down to the Virgin Islands." And I said, "I know, and I'm considering doing that, but really, my home is in North Carolina. That's where my dog is. That's where Lucky is. And that's where I want to go." And he kind of paused again and kind of looked off into space and had a smile on his face. And he looked back down at me and he said, "Really, the only time of the year to sail back to the United States, to sail west, is the first week in December. If you go before that, or if you go after that, you won't make it." And I was looking at him like, what? This is like the first week in November is more than 2 weeks ahead of time. And everybody understands weather. It's unpredictable. I mean, you can say, yeah, in a couple of days, pretty good possibility it's going to be blah, blah, blah. And 9 times out of 10, you might be right. Try predicting a week in advance. The percentage rate of being correct goes way the hell down. 2 weeks in advance, forget about it. And at sea, that story that I told you a few videos ago about running into that storm, they were wrong less than 24 hours in advance. That crap blew up overnight. So for him to say what he said with the confidence that he had, looking dead to me in the eye and saying, the first week in November is when you want to go. Don't go before, don't go after. And he just kind of smiled and he looked down at me again and he said, "May you have a blessed sail and wait for that first week in November." And then he turned and he started walking away, and I'm like, what? I'm feeling kind of frustrated and weird at the same time. And so as I'm reaching down to grab my glass of wine or whatever it was I was drinking, I can't remember what it was. Could have been a dark and stormy, but I don't think it was. And I look up and he's gone. And I don't see him down the dock this way or this way, and I can't really see over the lip because I'm kind of down low again, right? So I climb up the wooden ladder that's on the dock wall, the concrete wall, and because I want to say something to him again. I want to get more information from him. And he's gone. And it's a wide open expanse, and this guy's like in his 90s. And he just was gone. Well, a couple of weeks go by, right? And I'm frustrated. I'm checking the weather multiple times a day, trying to figure out where I should go, whether it's due south down to the Virgin Islands, or there was a possibility of going to the Bahamas, which is closer to Miami. You know, I could get to the Bahamas in like 6 days, and you know, crossing over to Miami is like a day sail, you know, and I could have predicted that easy, right? And then sail up the coast back to North Carolina. And then all of a sudden around about the 27th, 28th of November, 26th maybe, I noticed a window starting to open. It was like 6 days, right? And I could get to the Bahamas, not to North Carolina, because it looked like fronts were just going to keep coming off every 2 or 3 days, and that would have been no bueno, right? So I saw an opportunity to sail perhaps to southern Florida. So I called my buddy Fupa, Captain Fupa, and if you're watching this, dude, thank you. Fupa, Captain Fupa, is one of those Bermudians that he's a sailor, and a damn good one. knows the sea, knows the islands. He's been at sea quite a few times, and I very well respect that guy, so thank you. And he came down from St. George's, jumped on my boat with me, and then we sailed her up to St. George's where the custom dock is. That's where you have to sail in and out of Bermuda if you come from another country, which I did. So go up to St. George's, get the boat there so I can be ready to take off at a moment's notice, because I saw this window starting to open. Turns out the dude was right. The ancient Bermudian that I was talking about before, on November the 29th, middle of the day, I took off. And I'll talk about this in later videos. I took off in the direction of the Bahamas, which would have been a 6-day crossing. And I got halfway to the Bahamas, got a satellite message from my team back in North Carolina, from Captain Honig. Thank you, Captain. You know, something was happening down there weather-wise, and they were like, no, turn the boat, head towards Florida. Well, I did, and then I kept turning the boat because the way the weather was working, I ended up right back where I started in North Carolina, Wilmington. That guy, that Bermudian, was right. So, what did I learn from that? Sometimes, man, we're given signs. And I know, depending on whatever religion that you subscribe to, depending on whatever belief system that you subscribe to, and I respect it, I do. Some people will tell you that signs are from the dark side or from whatever. Don't look for signs. Don't pay attention to signs because they're bad. Well, I know for a fact that had I not paid attention to that sign that was given to me, and to me that man was not just a man. And maybe he was. Maybe he just had so much wisdom because he was 90 years old that he just knew that one particular week out of the year was the only time to head in the direction that I wanted to ultimately go. Or he was an angel. I know what you're saying. Fritchie, you're crazy. Maybe I am. But again, I know from experience, paying attention to that sign that I didn't look for, by the way, and here, that's the difference. You know, some people will tell you, and I'll actually be one of them, don't go looking for them. Oh my God, something's going on right now. I wish God or something would give me a sign about what to do. I used to do that. That day that I was sitting on my boat wondering what I was going to do, I wasn't saying, give me a sign, God. I wasn't looking for one. I was just sitting there chilling. Somebody approached me, something happened. And in the moment, I didn't realize it, but I was given a sign. And I paid attention to it. My soul paid attention to it. It was intense on the way back. And I'll talk about some of that intensity in the next video. But I paid attention here, listened, the way I learned to listen on the sail over. And again, the sail back was completely different. So what's the old world view? Well, you know what it is. Everything can be explained. Don't go looking for signs. Don't pay attention to signs. That's arrogant, man. Because there's so much out there, there's so much here that can't be explained. So how do you deal with it? Just become humble to it. Become open to it. Don't be scared of it. The divinity that is within us is there for a reason. It's to help us. It's to guide us as human beings on this scary path of life that we're on. And it can be scary sometimes. So what do you do? I mean, you can back away from it. not pay attention to it. At your peril, perhaps. Again, if I had not paid attention to that, could have been bad. Could have been very bad. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about an experience I had on the way back to North Carolina. It's a very powerful experience. In some ways, one of the most powerful experiences of my entire life. And I'm going to talk about what people refer to as a shamanic journey. I've been told, once I tell so many stories of what happened to me out there. I expand on the stories that I tell in the book Path of 300. And some people I tell these stories to, and they're like, dude, you need to go on a shamanic journey. You need to take ayahuasca or some other kind of drug because your mind will... Well, here's the thing, friends. I didn't take any drugs when I was out there. I took off and I experienced things, and they're clear in my head. I didn't need to consume a mind-altering substance in order for my soul, the energy source that is within me, to remain connected to the divine. And I'll talk more about that in the next video. There's no judgment from me. If that's how you go on a shamanic journey, or if that's how somebody instructs you to go on one, that's your deal. It's not mine. And again, I'll touch on that, among other things, in the next video. Until then, discover what your soul wants. Tell your ego to take a hike in a loving way. Everybody have a good week. Peace to you. Overcome the challenge created when they're blah, blah, blah. Dang it.